All right, we have an interesting panel for you, and I'll, without wasting any time, get right into it. We are today talking about energizing industry, academia collaborations, learning for a better learning journey ahead. And I'd just like to introduce the panel and ask them to come join us here on stage. Our first panel member is Dr. Jihan Zahran. She's a PhD, a university professor with 23 years of experience and has worked in Egypt and the Middle East. She has a Master's of Science degree in marketing and a PhD in educational management from the University of Western California. In addition, she holds an international fellowship in education from NYU. Dr. Zahran's background with renowned institutions has equipped her with a strong foundation in her field, and she has worked with ministries, educational development for international curricula, and she has led stakeholder relations for higher education institutions. Furthermore, she is an esteemed founder of an educational consulting company, further showcasing her commitment to educational advancement. Please join us on stage, Dr. Zahran. We are also joined by Mr. Peter Phillips. I think Peter's come in from Bali, where my head is when I was outside. Peter has well over a decade of experience across various forms of traditional, independent, and progressive education systems and approaches to education. He has led numerous collectives of deep thinkers and highly creative people across design, strategic planning, conscious branding, and aesthetic communication production. Peter is well positioned to bring conscious change through his experience and insights into the future of education and conscious branding for business. His intention is to share the disruption that educators need to create for the education industry to stay relevant and become the definitive thought-leading standard for learning globally. He focuses on social innovation and social enterprise alongside cross-industry partnerships and communications that catalyze and scale. Welcome, Peter. Dr. Karina R. Jensen. Dr. Jensen is an international management consultant, change facilitator, and educator with 25 plus years of experience in launching and leading global innovation and education initiatives. She's the founder and executive director of Global Minds Network and founder and president of micollaboratory.org. She is also a professor of global innovation and leadership at Neoma Business School in France, with teaching and research interests in the global innovation, leadership, and multicultural collaboration space. She has authored several publications, including a book on leading global innovation. Welcome, Dr. Jensen. We also have Mr. Elvin Joseph, who is the Director of Business Development at the University of Strathclyde. With over 16 years of experience and having worked extensively in the corporate sector, prior to this, Elvin is a pioneer for crafting and fostering meaningful partnerships between the world of education and academics. His focus remains on developing relationships with key stakeholders, promoting collaborative research projects, and facilitating technology transfer initiatives that result in commercial applications for the benefit of the student body. His passion for driving economic growth and bridging the gap between theory and practice has earned him a recognition with the business community and in academic circles as a demanding professional who is focused on providing every opportunity to the enrolled cohorts at Strathclyde. Welcome, Elvin. And we also have Mr. Ramadoss. I'm not sure if he's unable to make it, I suppose. Oh, I think he's there. Wonderful. Excellent. Please join us. And I would ask you, I've not received your credentials yet, and I'm sure there are many. I would ask you to please take a minute and introduce yourself, Mr. Tamil Selvan. There's a mic right there,
I have the honor of self-introducing myself. My name is Tamil Ramadoss. I come from the industry side. Currently, I'm the Chief Financial Officer for a multinational company here in UAE. Why I'm sitting in this forum in education is basically I propel and support the idea of TMH, which we call them as the triple helix model, wherein we connect the industry, academia, and the government. And I spent almost 13 years of my experience in Government of Dubai, in the Dubai Maritime City Authority, where we really implemented the concept of integrating the maritime education segment with the industry, with the support of government. Thanks a lot.
Welcome. So before we get started, just a quick question. What would be the value to your institutions or enterprises or places of business if you could get somebody from the school or college system and the training that you needed to provide them is minimal? They hit the ground running. What would be the value of that? How many of you would value that as a 10 out of 10? Raise your hand. Right? There's very strong value to that, because a lot of times people coming out of the system of education, they know the theory, but applying it's a whole other ballgame, isn't it? Excellent. All right. So with that, let's get started with this panel discussion.
You can have a seat. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah. Widen the circle. Yeah. So we only have 5 microphones. There is 5. It's okay, we can share.
All right, welcome panel. My first question, let's dive right into it, is what do you think is the biggest limitation when it comes to collaboration between industry and academia meeting? We'll start with Dr. Jensen.
Biggest limitation, I believe, is really to see each other as see it as a mutually beneficial relationship. What I find working at academia at times is kind of us against them, or not recognizing the benefit of collaborating together. So what is important is just really to join together and look at what each side brings. And how industry can view academia as a source of learning, not only from professors, but from students, a source of new ideas in terms of collaboration. And academia, on the other hand, to see how important it is to work with industry, especially now, in order to look at how to accelerate learning.
Dr. Zahran, we'd love to hear your views.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question actually to my, colleagues and attendees here. What the orange color means to you? What the orange color means to you?
Well, I like it.
You know? What means to you?
Orange for me, does it carry a meaning? I think it's vibrant for me.
Okay.
I think of vibrancy, I think of life when I think of orange.
Vibrant.
Yes.
Anybody has other word of the meaning of orange or the significance of orange color? Energy. Yeah. And anybody else has another word for orange color? Actually, it's a significant one. It's well known scientifically when you do the orange color. So it comes to creative. Thank you. Who said that? I will owe you something outside now. So, as all of it, what you said is right, but orange coming from the creativity. And that comes from orange economy. And I think most of us heard about orange economy. Did you hear about orange economy? Who heard about orange economy? Orange economy. Okay. Orange economy, it's the production model, okay, where goods and services comes together to a creative product, all right? So, and that's why all the words now talking about or working on orange economy. In another word, we call it creative economy. And that's why they call it orange. From that part, I really want to say that's the limitation that we need to do. Okay, so 3% from UNESCO said 3% of domestic, gross of products. This is 3% of the whole world products. And 30 million jobs all over the world just working for orange economy. That's what's going to be. next time we can have in details about, could give, give time to my people.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, you're welcome.
So, Peter, what do you think is the biggest limitation when it comes to energizing the collaborations between industry and academia?
Well, firstly, hello. Assalamu alaikum. And where I'm from, we say Om Swastiastu. This is my first time on this land in Dubai, and I'm extremely grateful to be here, and I am very curious. I'm very interested in this land. I'm very interested in each and every one of you being here. I don't know your stories. I don't know what industry you represent or what form of education you represent, but I'm deeply curious. So for me, to answer that question, it would be to have a deep curiosity across the board and to not confine ourselves to one industry, to one stream of education, and to have an all-inclusive approach to life, which is based upon human-centered relationships.
Thank you. Elvin.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here amongst global thinkers and educators. For me, I've been in this industry for almost 16 years, and so one of the things that I was able to learn with engaging with different industries is they see academia as people or the universities sitting in an ivory tower just delivering content, what they feel is the right thing. But whereas they don't engage with the industry and see what are the demands, what are the requirements in the market that is to be developed in the curriculum to be delivered. So there is a huge gap in terms of what the industry requires and what the universities or academic houses deliver. So when you talk to different industries, so there is demand. For example, when we were doing research with some of the basic industries, they said we have a huge gap in terms of finding engineers. But is there a supply of engineers? Yes, there's a huge number of engineers in the market, but the transferable skills that they have when they get employed is missing. So there's this onus on these industries where they employ people and they spend millions of dollars training them, upscaling them to be employable by these industries. So one of the things that universities or academic houses need to do is to talk to the industries and try and understand what those challenges are and incorporate it into their academic material.
Well, that's a very interesting perspective. Just as a little follow-up, I think that's a joint responsibility between academicians and absolutely. Great, thank you. Mr. Ramadoss.
Hi, good evening again. I think I'm just going to continue from whatever my fellow colleague has said on this topic is that there is a gap between the industry and academia from both the sides. When our friend was talking about the academia has to approach to the industry, it is also equally important the industry approaches to the academia, because the pain point is in the academy. No, the pain point is more with the industry. They're going to get unskilled employees, they're not updated to the real-time work talent, and that is going to be a big burden, and the training budget is going to be a huge burden for the organization because there's a big gap between the academia and the industry requirements. So it is a gap which cannot be filled only from one side. It is more important the industry approaches not just for recruiting the employees as a students from the universities, instead go well in advance to the academia side, talk to them. This is what happening in my area of industry where there has been a big gap in your academic textbooks, in your curricula, so improve it, work with them. So there is a joint curriculum that is being developed every year, getting updated so that both of them get benefited. I just want to give one simple example belonging to my industry. I come from the finance and accounting industry. Let's talk about a topic called budgeting, which is common to any one of us. We all do budgeting for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 2 years, rolling budgets. But the budgets as a topic being taught in academia, even the best of the universities in US is not coping up to the real-time budgetary system that is happening in the industry. We talk something called encumbrance accounting, where we try to control the budgeting right from creating the purchase order to the invoicing, to recording the accounting records into the books. But that has never been incorporated even in the best of the textbooks of budgeting topic in any of the universities across the globe. So this is a clear example that there's a big gap between academia and industry, almost a decade. So industries are far ahead than academia. Gone are the days of 5 to 6 decades before, when you graduate from a university, you are well equipped to work in an industry. No, it's a vice versa, where industries have gone far ahead, where academia is trying to catch up. So this gap has to be solved mutually, and that will benefit mutually as well.
Yeah, I was on a panel this morning, and just building on that, we were talking about how the formal system of education gives you the subject matter expertise, that gives you the domain knowledge, but how to monetize that knowledge, that's the practical experience that they learn actually on the job. And I think that's what all of us here have referred to in saying that industry needs to step back in to be able to bring focus to that, so that the products that are coming out, the students that are coming out are so much more ready, productivity can be enhanced, grooming other leaders can be enhanced, and we can find better ways in shorter time to be able to deal with the challenges of the changing world of today. Great. All right, let me move on to my next question here. So, what do educators and industry leaders need to put in place in today's fast-paced world to ensure that there is meaningful growth in how they come together? Now that's the first part. So what do they need to put in place in terms of frameworks to make sure that they are coming together? And how would you energize such collaborations and can suggest some actions that academicians and industry leaders can put into play immediately? So the first part of the question is a macro perspective, and then it drills down to more of a micro perspective. We can go in that order, or if somebody has a scintillating thought, they can start right away.
If I could start there from a very, very ground level. So I want to move you through very quickly the last 4 years of the developments in a small island called Bali. So when the pandemic came, we started up a progressive learning centre. This learning centre has 3-year-olds to 14 and 15-year-olds. The evolution of that has meant that we have now been able to, through this freedom we have in this form of education, is to have partnerships with universities. So universities have said, this model of education is a very interesting model. Why? Because it deals with life as it is. Workplace readiness skills, soft skills, all of this terminology that we have been discussing over the last day and a half. And what is now interesting is we are seeing industry coming towards us. So hospitality is coming towards us and saying, we want to have our hospitality staff trained. Universities are coming and saying, we want to have an 18-week intense internship, and we will give credits to students where they do not have to step foot in the university. And we give them a full portfolio and a full report that details all of these 21st century skills, which increases their potential outcomes in terms of employability. So this is something that I can bring as a point in the discussion of how educators or education at a very grassroots level can support industry and academia.
That's a very good micro example. Excellent. Thank you for sharing. It's something that you've been passionately involved with for a few years now on the ground, right? And what are some of the kind of outcomes that you've noticed coming out of that program?
Incredible growth and change in a short amount of time. And if I can bring it to this point, that the youth are they do not yet have the constraints of a typical workplace environment. So they are, in a sense, a little bit unhindered by the noise of the world. And so to be able to get them in early, we see almost an awakening, if you like. There's this talk about consciousness. It's an awakening of what the concept of time actually is, of what communication means, of what vulnerability is. So to have these students come through who are really human beings and adults who will go out into the workforce, this is 60% of the population in Indonesia, is incredible in terms of a wide space of opportunity for industry and academia to collaborate, because it means it can catalyze and scale. and it means that our workforces will be supported from the ground up.
Thank you. Wonderful work. Mr. Ramadoss.
I want to just add to my friend here, like there are a lot of things can be done from the educators. The first and foremost thing is, there are 3 phases of entrepreneurial university. But most of the universities have not gone through these 3 phases yet now. They're just stuck in the first and the second phase. The first phase is teaching and training. So most of the educators in schools and universities, they focus only on teaching and training, right? The next stage is getting up to a research and development stage. So across the globe, you can see hand-picked universities which are very much focused on growing up to the research and development stage. But having reached to the research and development stage, the educators and the education systems and the ecosystems get standstill there. They do not go to the next stage. But the entrepreneurial university has to go to the next stage where they work very, very proactively so that they can effectively and efficiently support and create an innovative society or innovative ecosystem of education where they can go and work with the industry. They can work and get the support from the government, which we call them as the triple helix model, so that their education and training, the research and development is getting into the innovation chain. The final level is converting or creating or changing the science into wealth. That is the level of education that has to be growing up from the educators level. So they have to get into an economic development model where the research and development doesn't just stay in the labs, doesn't stay in the textbooks, doesn't stay in the knowledge scholarly articles and ADCB publications. Rather, these publications get into real-time usage, real-time applications, so that the real purpose of educators gets into a completion stage, and that's the mature model of entrepreneurial university. To give examples, I belong to this area for almost 23 years. I've been spending in Sharjah and Dubai. I worked also for Dubai government for 13 years, where I could see in 2010, when you take the newspapers and records, you see almost 22.5% of the federal budget was allocated on education segment. So there is no need to undermine on the topic that this country, this region is spending much on education. But are they talking together? Yes, they were talking together. Classic examples. Let's talk Emirates-wise. Abu Dhabi started way back in a world-class institution called Masdar. They are a very good model of triple helix model where they find sustainable research models that gets implemented into sustainable construction. You talk about sustainable real estate that is well supported by Masdar. You talk about Dubai, you can just go to Sheikh Zayed Road, the Future Museum, correct? That's a place, that's a hub for innovation that has been taken very, very seriously, and a lot of innovation models are coming out from this in collaboration with academy and also with the government and also from industrial side. If you go to Sharjah in the Northern Emirates, they have created world-class institutions like American University of Sharjah. In cooperation to that, they made also American University of Sharjah Enterprise. Something like what you're talking is that they do not just talk about research and development and education within AUS, but they also create an enterprise connected to AUS, being a sector that can implement what comes as a research outcome from AUS. Also, they have something called as SR-TIP, that is Sharjah Research, Technology and Innovation Park, which is an exact replica of Masdar in a way where they take the industry, when the industry adopts the idea from the academia and put them into economic growth. So this is where the educators have to grow up. They cannot be in a very myopic thought that I'll be just giving teaching and training and to an extent research and development. No, that research and development should translate into real-time economic development.
Well, you know, it's very encouraging to hear this, because I think, in a classroom, the lesson is delivered first and the test comes afterwards. But in life, you know, the test comes first and the lesson is delivered afterwards. So it's good to see that there's such practical application happening, because, you know, there's no replacement for that fear and that vulnerability that you feel when you have to do it yourself. It's easy to understand and appreciate intellectually, but when you're actually on the mountain above 26,000 feet, you know, that first-hand experience is mind-changing. I mean, it's life-changing. Great.
I just like wanted to add to that because the triple helix model is something that we as a university sort of incorporate into bridging between industry, academia, and government, where it's like a three-way bridge where everybody communicates or travels within each other. So we're looking at industries where there is a revolution that's taking place. So if academia doesn't follow that, then you're missing out on a huge element. Universities or academic houses are a huge repository of information where if it's not transferable to industries, then there is again a huge gap. So one of the things that we do as a university at Strathclyde, it's one of the oldest universities. We have one of the largest technology innovation center in the UK, in Glasgow, and it's the largest in the UK. So one of the things that we do is we work very closely with industry. So we have close to 900 industry partners. Just to take an example, as we work very closely with Rolls-Royce, where some of those engine parts are actually manufactured on our campus. So imagine taking an engineering student into these facilities and giving them the hands-on experiences in terms of understanding how these operations work. So the moment they graduate from the university, they're easily employable by these workplaces. So these are some of the transferable skills that the academic institutions have to work closely with the industry. So the moment you graduate, you have a job in hand because you know what the industry standards are. So the triple helix model is something that really works. And it's a sad reality of things that most universities don't kind of do that. And I think if you don't, you sort of miss out on the game.
You know, your response reminds me of an educational model and concept we used to have back in ancient India called the Gurukul. And the word guru is for teacher, and Gurukul is the school of the guru, where, you know, the student used to spend time with the teacher, and it wasn't as much about, you know, subjects such as math and chemistry and you know, accounts. It was more about the teacher telling the student where to look, but not telling them what to see. They would point them in the right direction. And that, I think it had a link with the panel earlier as well, where they were talking about leadership. And I think part of that is also where you help others become a leader. So, you know, I think one of the panelists there as well was talking about how, you know, they ask leaders what to do. That's because the way you gain experience is, you know, it comes from bad decisions. You know, the ability to make good judgments comes from experience, but experience itself comes from bad decisions, right? That's how we learn. So sometimes you have to put your own hand into the fire to learn that fire's hot.
Okay, thank you for the word saying people would like to do. So I'm going to start from this point. I think we came here to know solutions, to know something that we can learn about it, a case, or it's maybe something that happened on the ground and we need to follow, or we need to upgrade or develop. So do you like to know about orange economy? Still? Okay. So let me complete the orange economy, what it's the trades about. It trades about related to art, communication, food, coding, and internship. Internship, actually, this is in particularly, it's focusing on producing or creating something coming to the sustainable and eco-friendly. Okay, so this is actually what the orange economy or creative economy needs to be in all over the world for that. And that's what we need at the end, the limitation at your first question. So we need to come to this. So how can we start our early years and higher education and all the fields to come to that part, to sustainable and eco-friendly products, innovative products, creative products. And we are in UAE, especially in Dubai, and I'm based actually here, and I know what's going on and how's the education, how really they are investing in innovation, and they really get a very good rank in orange economy lately, in 2022. So from that part, and maybe the technical support, they have sharing link, if they still have it. Technical support in the back. Hello? Yeah, they know that they should share a link now. I don't know that they can share it or not. Hello, hello. Yeah?
Now I have to wake up.
Do you have the link to share it?
You got a link?
Yeah. Shobit actually should share a link with you.
I think they had put it on earlier when you were talking earlier as well.
All right, so this link is a real case of a higher education university. It's called Stakeholder Relation Center, okay? This Stakeholder Relation Center is not only for higher education, it can be for any organization because this is the link. Yes.
All right, there you go.
Oh, let me stand up because I like staying up actually. So we can go through it actually slowly. So this is a sample that any organization can make. Stakeholder relation is responsible for collaboration between any organization and outside, any partner. So it has your belief, vision, and mission, and what to believe in. And then you come to our goals, to the goals of the center itself, the collaboration. I can share with you the link, by the way, and the LinkedIn later on, just to have through, and maybe you can have an idea about it. So how it works, this is also on the website. So identify, map internal and access to nature, demonstrating, recommend, and mentor the manage the stakeholders relation. Any stakeholder. In the higher education, you have the parents, you have the students, you have the admin, you have the staff, you have everybody. He should be involved in that and give idea about this. But what is the main thing in that, in the stakeholder, that he is the center to think who is your real partner. Here is some of the achievement actually. For example, American Heart Association for Medicine School, okay? So it will hire the rank and at the same time will give more experience to community. Ameris, for example, for courses in English to all departments. Here is one of the things which is really getting into the market with accountant students. For Meditronic, for example, this is one of the company which is, I really think that it will make research skills to our engineering students. So this is the meaning actually, which is I meant by that, by collaboration. You are linking the academia with the market, with exactly what they need to practice. I worked in both. I know exactly what the professor in that really, I'm not offensive actually, but I'm working in both. So when I was, like dealing with professors, they are really committed for what the curricula that they have it, but in the same time, they really don't give a big issue to more communication with the business people, with the market. And the same side, the business people who really doesn't think about the academia. So collaboration between both of them will make innovative later on. Will make your student or your employee or whoever is someone who's really, when he graduates, he will know exactly what the market is. He will know the field beforehand. You will cut a chart for him, not wasting time, because otherwise they will grad and they will know at the end, this is, I have to get course in all of this field. I have to get course in that field to know. I have to know myself. So why from the beginning you collaborate and make things together? So my advice actually, or my recommendation to you for any organization, K-12, higher education specifically, and organizations to have a stakeholder relation center, to communicate, to part. That will be its own purpose and job to do. Focus on the benefit, on the belief of something that really will this and that will collaborate together to get innovative things for our world. Thank you.
Well, that's a great example. I think, your response makes me think about how you've brought focus and resources at the higher education level for this to be a priority. Excellent, excellent. Dr. Jensen.
I'm I'm going to take just a quick story, 1 minute, and it really builds upon what has already been said about having stakeholders and about it being a co-creation process. And I think this is critical, that from the various, before the course, that you co-create that with business leaders, companies, and then students. And so what I've been doing in my courses, and this is master's level, young students as well as even at executive level. The courses are more international in nature, so let's say they're leading global initiatives or global leadership. Students tend to come from many different countries, so can optimize their cultural backgrounds or diverse industry backgrounds as well. So the idea is that the companies pitch their projects. They say this is an international project or challenge where we would like your feedback. We need some help internally, you know, trying to make this successful across the organization. So they'll pitch to the students, participants, and they'll select their projects. And then we'll develop teams, make sure they're diverse teams and with diverse skills, diverse cultural backgrounds, and they will work on these challenges. And then my course becomes one of, each session is devoted to taking them through that process. So each session will be about, well then, what is important in terms of research or understanding, assessment of the organization and the cultural dimensions. And then the next one will be strategic, you know, in terms of how do you develop that strategic co-creation process, and so on until they get to execution now, you know, and how do we collaborate with remote teams? Because often they are also hybrid. They're in the classroom, some of them are calling in. And so it becomes a learning process within the classroom, but also many times the company leaders are invited to come in as mentors. So they'll come in and give a talk to give them some insights on the challenge and to give them some advice. And then finally the class culminates in a pitch. So each of those teams will present to a company leader, a company advisor, and then get feedback on how they did, or you know how the value that was brought to the company. So it's nice in that sense because it's within a context which I very much feel is relevant in terms of being international, multicultural, digitally connected, hybrid environment, but they're learning about the actual process that they can apply in industry.
Excellent. All right. But if we flip the coin, if we now ask, what should a student think about? So what are some aspects that students must think about to take the initiative needed for differentiating themselves and gaining that real-world experience that will allow them to create a more fulfilling career and future? If we look at it, see, so far we've been answering questions from the perspective of educators and industry. What guidance would you give to students?
I think I can take this question.
I'll ask you for quick responses on this one because
Sure. So I think if you look at the International Bureau of Education under the United Nations, it talks about the global citizen. That is what the requirement of the future. It talks about various pillars that needs to be inculcated so that the current students becomes the future leaders. The first and foremost thing that a student should look at to become the future leader is, it's not learning for exams, it's not learning only in universities, it's a lifetime learning, it's a lifelong learning. So one should inculcate in themselves right from the studentship that they have to learn for life. Second, they have to be very interactive with the textbooks, interactive with the colleagues, interactive with the fellow human beings, interactive with the world. That interaction and the communication skills are very, very important. They have to be also inculcated with the knowledge of how to interact with humanoids. This may sound a little cranky, but the future generation that is sitting in the schools now would not be working only with the humans like you. They will be interacting with humanoids, which is a composition of both artificially infused robotic systems where you will have employees along with them. We have humans like you and me with blood and flesh, but also we have artificial intelligence infused humanoids sitting and working with you. So you need to know how to interact with such machines. Second most important thing is to be multiliterate. When you talk about multiliterate, you talk about financial literacy, you talk about numerical literacy. There's no ending list for that. And the most important is transdisciplinary. You talk about schools being selecting only on science stream or STEM on engineering, but there has to be a great integration between philosophy with engineering. For example, genome and genetic engineering should have a philosophical infusion into that, so that tomorrow changing anything in the genetic system, it sounds ethical. So people just doesn't learn only technology on one side, become technocrats. No, they have to be ethno-technocrats, means they should be infused with a lot of ethical system of learning that can be integration between teaching STEM along with social studies and social sciences, with ethics, with languages, with some psychology into it. So this transdisciplinary study is very, very important to become a future leader as a current student.
Very well said. All right, we can turn it back to our...
In closing, if I could just say quickly, in terms of what I've heard at the conference so far, there's two things I'd like to say. One is there has been a lack of focus towards nature systems and the intelligence of nature systems. And if we emulate nature systems, and if we think about indigenous cultures, then innately we have earth care, we have fair share, and we have people care. The consequence of that means we have future care. And I think that is my comment in closing with this panel here. From the ground up and the sky down, this is the future, being able to create different forms of education, stakeholder relationships, and being able to catalyze and scale this for industry to increase the well-being of people, productivity at the same time.
Great.
Now's your opportunity to ask a question. I'm not getting rid of you yet. Don't you worry. Stay right where you are. Who wants to engage? Come on up to the microphone. All right, don't all run at the same time. Really? Really? Oh, go girl. Go girl. Thank you. Great panel.
Means session done, you know, when you have no
Hey.
questions, so everything is clear, you know.
Yeah, you guys hit a lot of points.
So I have more of a curiosity point, and my curiosity is, how do you foresee the intersection of industry where the Sustainable Development Goals and the United Nations Inner Development Goals come together to prepare these future leaders for the world of work? Thank
I
you.
like your question, by the way. I'm sorry if you allow me to answer. But as I said, you know, like the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals, it's something that really globally have done just for us to follow, right? So, and all the curriculum and the international curriculum is really on the same track. You have number 4, which is education, okay? Yeah, it's 4. So education specifically is something that really you have to look at it and you have to integrate it for what you're supposed to do. So SDGs is come from the sustainable, right? And when I tell you what we're doing in the future, all right, for sustainable goods and eco-friendly, so this is what we are going to. So you have to work in the innovation, creativity again. So, and how can you achieve that? You have to tolerate what exactly need to lead you at the end. So you have to think about how can I reach the highest level of the creativity of your students according to you have a guideline now. You have SDGs and you have the international curricula, and you have to think about who gonna collaborate with to come to your goal. I'll give you a sample, just a small sample of it. For example, you are responsible for university, and this university have School of Business, Hospitality and Management, for example. So what is the practical issue? So you have to communicate with an organization that it will collaborate with your students to train well in a very organized and very equipment place, and then you will get the goal now with the highest standard. You have to look in the partnership with the highest standard partner, not any partner. I hope I can answer you. Yes?
I'll just add a couple things to that. That was a Excellent question. I think, looking at the social development goals set by the United Nations, if you look at the model of how, capitalist economies and free market economies and leadership in general has developed, for the longest time, if you look back on kingdoms and dynasties, who were the people who emerged as leaders? They were the ones who could promise security, stability, we will give you, the fundamentals of a happy life. And then as we started to realize more of human potential, everybody said, I want to make a difference by myself, so I'm going to put in the effort to improve my life. And that's where, over a couple hundred of years, we moved to a free market economy system which prioritized capitalism and profit. And to integrate the software development, the social development goals, I think we now need to start defining business from a perspective of beyond profit. And I think we're beginning to see that, but that was a beautiful question because I think we need to see more of it.
Great, next question.
Actually, for me, it's not a question, but more of a recommendation. Actually, in higher education, one of the most underrated pedagogy is service learning. Because you mentioned about the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, this is actually involving stakeholders and at the same time, leadership development of the students. So when you say service learning, and you frame your curriculum, let's say you integrate the Sustainable Development Goals across the curriculum, you thread it. So there are specific activities that will be formulated, like for example, serving children who are malnourished, for example, so zero hunger, like Sustainable Development Goal number 2. But at the same time, every after activities that the students are serving the vulnerable populations, whether it's children, whether it's about climate change, basically the 17 SDGs, there is a reflective component because what sets service learning different from other pedagogies is actually its reflective component. So on that way also, you are opening this opportunity and path and trajectory towards a direct and indirect way of developing the leadership skills of the students because it's about advocacy. It's about serving the population. It's about serving the people. It's about looking deep within themselves for them to be able to identify their passion, their purpose, or what particular vulnerable population they would like to serve in the future. This is actually the, how can I say it, the thread. But it has to be just clearly assessed and formulated.
Thank you for your recommendation. Really, I'm sorry. I really want to have to come up at the end of this conference to have really some more like a leadership committee. That people will really, maybe each quarter we can meet even online and we can share something that really can be good for the community. I really don't want this communication and this actually conference to come in vain and people just lecturing and go. We need to have come up with a collaboration, really good collaboration to each point that maybe we can change the world from this point. Thank you.
Nice.
Is that of any interest to anyone
Yeah,
here?
anyone volunteering?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Amazing. Amazing, I love it. Hey, we could do something. We collaborate, girl.
Maybe it's a starting point for something that really will change the world one day. You
No
know, like
doubt.
who knows? You know, like this is an education, most ethically field in the whole world, core of every field. So we are the people who really can come up with an idea. Maybe it can tolerate anything.
Absolutely. Did you have something to say?
No, just to add in terms of social change too, I think change makers in the room, that we can continue to have these conversations, and I think it's very important that it's a fundamental question within courses on change. Something that I've been trying with the students now is, okay, you've learned the elements of change, of leading an initiative. Now, how would you be a change maker in terms of the IDGs or the SDGs, what would you choose? What would you change in the world? And then they have a chance to apply what they've learned and actually come up with a proposal, and they're free to pitch that too. So I think it's very important at any age, and we've been trying that with youth too, through my collaboratory in Nepal and Ghana, and just having like micro-learning, 2-week intensive sessions where they learn about this.
One of the main topic also, which is I really didn't see it here, and I really wish for see it next year, which is students of determination. Something related to them, something was really on the whole level of education. How can we help in all integration with the normal students in all of the fields, K-12 and higher education? Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, give him a round of applause. Thank you so much. I see you came up to the microphone. We're moving along, though, so you'll have to grab them during network hour. Come on up to the stage, panelists. We'd love a picture from the paparazzi as we move along here.
I will answer your question, by the way.
She's coming back for you. Remember him with the checkered shirt. Please come to the mic anyway while we're taking this picture. Come on up, throw out the question so she can come after you and make sure she answers it. But come over for the picture. Yeah, of course. Why not? You know, please. Fadal, what do you have to say?
So
please.
it's not a question, it's a comment.
Comment.
Talk, by the way. Learned a lot. I think we all learned a lot. Yeah, so it looks like in the future, the golden rule, the golden plan is for industry and academia to unite, right? Not separate, as it is the present right now. And as we can see in history, you know, the concept of flight, right? The Wright brothers are credited with founding, you know, modern flight, right? Founding the airplane, designing, and, you know, making it so one day we're in the West, next day we can be in the East, all because of travel. However, if it wasn't for the works of the researcher, the mathematician Nikolai Grugowski, the Russian mathematician, if it wasn't for his work in complex potential theory and flow, and figuring out that flight is possible using complex potential, using the right shape, the right design, using this was inspiration for the Wright brothers to make the airplane. So yeah, I'd just like to close this, and hopefully we can all learn to, you know, integrate research and industry, try to find that right union. So thank you guys.
Research and industry, thank you very much for wrapping up.